Hey Helen, this is going to be very interesting. So I asked you to chat to me today, and the subject that we were kind of delving into a little bit was about yo-yo dieting and diet culture, and also like the implications of age groups, really, I suppose, because I think that there's a point, when we're a bit younger, that you can kind of get away with it, but I tend to see a lot of women now come through to me, and that whole rebound thing, and now they're at a point where nothing's working.
Yeah.
And I'd like your expertise. So maybe just give us a little bit of background about yourself and
Okay.
go.
So my background is that I used to be a gymnast and still am a dancer, believe it or not. And I recently got the opportunity to dance professional again, which I thought was amazing, hilarious, and grabbed it with two hands and really loved it. So, because dance is an absolute passion and love of mine, and as is health and fitness and helping people. So, I started when I was 17, before there were any sort of decent qualifications in health and fitness. And then my local college started running trainings in health and fitness. So I trained with them, and at that time it was a 2-year course that I managed to condense into one course, and that was to teach exercise to music. It's a bit different today in terms
I
of
did that too.
yeah. So it was a 2-year course condensed into one, but then the RSA came out. For those of you who are long in the tooth might remember the RSA. And so I redid the whole course so I could get the RSA qualification with the course. And it was all running along the side of the fact that I had a career as a dancer. So I was working as a dancer. Um, and I set up my own classes, and they went really well. Then I set up my own business, and then was invited to go back to the college and work as a lecturer. And from there, I ended up being a presenter and traveling. I was by then representing Great Britain in my sport, and so I was doing a lot. I was doing a lot all the time, and I'm still doing a lot all the time. I still work full time as a fitness professional. I teach classes in the community in the evenings, all created by me. I don't teach any other brands. I just teach my Daibo health and fitness stuff and dance. Daibo stands for dance your butt off. So, and then I have a personal training studio. So I personal train during the day. Within the personal training, I also work with NLP, life coaching and hypnosis, but also gut health. I work a lot in gut health and sports injury rehab, prehab, mindset. I've got a beautiful, diverse range of men and women, mainly women that I work with, some elite athletes and some grandmothers, and everything in between. It's glorious. I love the mix and the variety, the human person, the whole person.
So you must come across women the same as I do, that again are in this kind of midlife point where they have tried all the diets, they have done the slimming world, the restricted calories, and as I say, you said you studied nutrition too. So what sort of implications how do you implement changing their mindset?
Well, I think I start from a position of empathy, because I think we've all been there and done that. I've come. You think about how society has changed its idea of what the ideal female image and body is. You think about Twiggy, you think about Marilyn Monroe, and they were literally only sort of 20 years apart in terms of fashion. And women can't change their bodies genetically. They can only you can only alter your body to a certain extent by exercise or cosmetic surgery. But women have been trained for decades to be dissatisfied with the shape they have if it's not in fashion. At the moment, the fashion is the fake look, I think, is what it's called, which is a very distorted image compared to the natural body. So I think the starting point really for women is understanding, listening to them, and understanding and empathizing and recognizing the pressures that they're putting on themselves and maybe external pressures. So that's just on a body image side. But then also listening to them about their lives, about the pressures that they're under. So women of our generation are the women who've got maybe elderly parents that we're trying to look after, have them in maybe nursing homes, that transition. But equally, you might have teenage children yourself. You might have like two stages of family life. You might have some of your kids actually having kids of their own. And then you might have a second generation if you had another relationship and you've got young kids of your own. So you're really stuck in the middle, and there's not, everyone wants something and there's very little time. So it's understanding those pressures and then helping women recognize the pressures that they're on, recognizing not just those time pressures and how often they're very time poor, but also their expectations of what they can achieve, and as well as look after themselves and what they're prepared to do.
I think as well that was one of the titles of one of the podcasts that I wanted to talk about, was the unrealistic expectations. And I think, you know, you're 100% right. We see as we go through the ages, you know, I'm getting on, and as you go through the ages, these body shapes change. And I mean, you've sort of gone from, there's so many more females in the gym now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many more females weight training now. It's an Instagram thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's certain body types that maybe people are not aware of, you know, like your mesomorph and all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah, but I want to, you've got half of them that want sort of the CrossFit body, and the other half that want like the Kim Kardashian body. And, oh, I want to build my glutes. I want to, and it's like, it is a bloody minefield out there, isn't it? And all you really want to do is say to them, let's just get you feeling a bit healthier and
exactly.
a little bit better and moving a little more.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that the starting point is healthy. You know, begin with being healthy, because an unrealistic expectation of how you should look is unhealthy. Mentally, it's a horrible pressure, a horrible strain, and the last thing we need at this point in our life is extra cortisol, right? So why would we be making ourselves so stressed and worried about our body not being a 20-year-old's body? My body was a 20-year-old's body when I was 20. And now I have the body of a lady who's a fit 58-year-old, you know, and feeling very grateful that I am able to dance and I am able to move my body, and that's what I'm working towards. And I guess people gravitate towards the sort of person that represents what it is that they're after. So I'm not putting myself under the pressure anymore. I've done it to look like I'm 20, because that's ridiculous. Let the 20-year-olds, the Instagram stars, let them do 20. I did it and I really enjoyed it. And now I'm enjoying 58-year-old and being grateful, you know, still dancing.
Definitely. And it's funny, right? Because I got up this morning and I was like, oh, I could really skip the gym today because I go in the morning. And I actually thought to myself, just be grateful that you can.
Yes.
Just be grateful that you can actually go in there and do your squats and do your stuff. Like, just be grateful. Just go.
You've got your health. You know, I've worked very hard at looking after my health. I'm not going to lie. I supplement, I exercise. I probably do too much in terms of stress. So that's not something that's easily avoided in this day and age, is it? But but last year I pushed myself too hard for too long. The pandemic took a lot out of me, and a lot of us in business, a lot of us in the fitness business are sort of still reeling, really. And I went down with pneumonia, and I ended up in hospital for 2 weeks with pneumonia, really sick. And quite honestly, I'm still suffering from like post-viral malaise. And it's because I simply pushed too goddamn hard. And my friend said to me something really simple. She said, you know what, Helen, remember your health is your wealth. So I would also say, you know, if you wake up one day and you think, oh my God, this hurts, that hurts, I'm really not feeling it, and I'm not feeling well, that is the day to give yourself a break. And if you get a whole 5 days of feeling like that, you've got to have a little personal review. You've got to have a little check-in with yourself. Why is it I'm feeling this rubbish 5 days in? I'm still not wanting to get my body moving. Double check that you're not maybe overtraining, you're not overdoing it. That's the hardest thing, I think, finding balance.
Yeah. And sort of going back to the menopause clients, it is about finding their new balance, isn't it? Like getting them to address the stress, address the moving more, and the nutrition. And we spoke about nutrition just before we started recording, actually.
Yeah.
And I think, do you feel that being a fitness professional in the term, you're kind of always under that little bit more pressure to be a
Yes.
certain way or look a certain way or even move a certain way?
Yeah, I do. I do, because we're back to me getting the pneumonia. I felt like I'd failed because I preach health, fitness, well-being, optimal nutrition, and I was so ill, and I felt like a fraud. I felt like a fake because I was ill. But of course, I'm a human being, and I was a human being that was getting the balance wrong. I was working too hard, giving too much of myself, not recovering, not paying attention. So I was doing all the right things in terms of, yes, I'm getting my exercise, and yes, I'm getting the right nutrition in. I supplement, I eat a gut healthy diet. But what I was getting wrong was the amount of psychological and emotional pressure. And I do feel, and I've had an eating disorder in the past, so I try to remember to be kinder to myself about body image, because the menopause does change your body. Whether you've had kids or not, having kids can change your body. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there are some women out there that will want to do everything they can to create the figure that they want. And it's about the figure that they want rather than what they can do with their body. And so that, you know, this is where maybe the cosmetic surgery will come in. This is where the extreme diets will come in. This is where because overtraining is a form of abuse. So they will do all of that. And we're talking about people who work in the fitness industry as well. So there will be people who are leading from the front who really, in all intents and purposes, aren't holistically healthy. And they will be role models for some people. For other people, they will reject that image because they think it's too far away from them being able to achieve it. So, you've got, Jill, you're an absolutely stunning woman. You've got an amazing figure. You look absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure for your clients, that is incredibly inspirational. And that's what they want to attain, some of what you possess. You work hard for your body, you apply your knowledge. All of these things are working well for you. And this is your life in your way. And that works for you and your clients. I have clients who are grateful to be able to get on and off the floor. I've got a lot of clients who have health conditions, and so they don't aspire to look like an athlete. They don't aspire to that. I had a client who was a grandmother, newly made grandmother, and she came to me and she said, all I want to be able to do is sit on the floor and be able to play with my grandchildren. That was her initial goal. Nothing about her figure, nothing about her shape. Having said that, though, she spends a whole session moaning about her figure and her shape and a big boob.
I had a client come to me saying exactly the same thing. Again, grandmother, she couldn't get off the floor. She'd gained quite a lot of weight, had quite a few problems. And we put a plan together for her just to get her, like, maybe, and all it was really was just to elevate her step count just a tiny bit to start off with. I'm a great believer in meeting people where they are and just adding a tiny percentage to make them feel better. She won't bleed and do none of it.
Well, what people say they're prepared to do and what they're actually prepared to do are often not the same thing.
I know.
So, you know, and that's where the tough love comes in, right? And this is where, you know, you have to hold up the mirror. If there's trust and respect between the two of you, you can stand there and you can say, you know what, I love you dearly. You asked me to help you with your issue, and I've helped you find what the solution is likely to be. Now it's over to you. Don't get cross with yourself if you're not achieving that simple adjustment. It's about being, you know, if you want to look like Jill, the amazing personal trainer, you're gonna have to train like Jill, the personal trainer. You know, she puts the bloody work in.
I think sometimes people think that if they find a trainer, they hire a trainer, they pay for the trainer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, job done.
Like the job's done. And I'm like, well, not really.
Yeah, I had this conversation yesterday. I said, you know, you can't pay a poorer person than you to do your exercise for you. It doesn't work like that. You know, I'm not going to go and you know, they have to do the exercise. Me doing it for them, or even talking about it. You know, I think you can't just talk about it. You actually have to action the talk.
Yeah, that's the hard bit, isn't it?
Well, it's about really as well, isn't it? Honesty, self-honesty, as well as being honest with your client. You know, I had a client who would hand over her food diary. I always say, can we have a plan rather than a diary? Because you know, a diary is history. Let's talk about preparation and planning and getting organized and ready with you know, eating the right food at the right time. But she'd hand over her food diary and it was clearly a figment of her imagination. It really was. So I put an end to our working together. You know, I just felt that, you know, the time that she was putting in wasn't providing her with the results. So I said, right, go off, have a little think about it, trying to put into practice what we've been doing together. And it's not a case of never darken my door. It's about when you are ready to actually put into practice what I've told you, then we'll get back together again. So she came back for her pre-session sort of chat. And I said to her, so she said, well, you probably knew that my food diary wasn't honest. And I said, And she's like, well, no, how did you know? I said, because I got eyes. I could see you weren't doing it. You know, so she's like, yeah, well, fair enough. But interestingly, despite that, what she said, what she wanted, her belief that she could achieve it, no matter who she worked with, I asked her, on a scale from 1 to 10, how successful do you believe you're going to be in terms of achieving this goal? And she said, about 1 out of 10. And I said, you know what, you're probably right, because if you think it's only going to be 1, you're only going to put 1's worth of effort into it, because you want to be proven right. You know, there's a difference between a dream and a goal. You know,
100%.
You're dreaming and you can make this a goal and you can achieve, but your goal has to be about what it is that you want to achieve. And so she wanted to do triathlons, and her goal was just not to come last. I mean, on an NLP level, there were so many red flags in terms of that statement. So I said to her, you know, you can only control yourself and your own effort and performance. Coming first or last is very much about how much the other people are doing for themselves. And so if you come second to last, would you be satisfied? And she would have been satisfied with second to last. But she's basing her goal on the performance of others.
There's a lot to be said for believe, achieve, isn't there?
True.
I mean, you get an intuition when you've trained people for so long. You do sometimes get that intuition. And for some of my online clients, we start off with maybe just like some measurements, some pictures. And the ones that will not submit are usually the ones that won't commit.
Right. Yeah, they've got to face it. It's about facing your starting point, isn't it?
Yeah. And I know it's hard, but you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? And so talking about like the fitness industry as such, what do you like? Because it is, I do think, especially at the moment, there is a minefield of information out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be. I don't know if you're in some of the Facebook groups, but there was a group kicking off last week about Jo Wicks, which actually did really make me laugh.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't. But obviously he's at the forefront, isn't he? Like he's got such a big platform.
Yeah.
And he's now doing obviously his menopause coaching.
Yeah.
And everyone was kind of up in arms about it, which I mean, I was just a bystander with my popcorn listening to it all play out. But what do you think about all the information? I mean, Davina has done a good job. Davina McCall has kind of brought it to the surface, and it's created a lot of talking points, and it is a lot more out in the open. And maybe now maybe women feel more comfortable talking openly about it. But how do you feel it's kind of took a turn in the fitness world?
I think there's a lot of meno caching going on at the moment, and maybe the finger could be pointed at Jo about him being a bit meno caching. He's a businessman. I mean, I think where he is brilliant is his ability to drive a business forward and make money. And I think the whinging that went on I was watching that post as well. If you're not careful, it sounds like sour grapes. It sounds like, well, he's successful, he's making shed more loads of money than I am, but I'm better than him, and that's what it sounds like, and it just sounds bitter. And I don't know if it helps get the message across at all. I don't think he has his heart and soul in the menopause side of things. I think he's branched out into so many areas. He's a dad now as well, so he's focusing on family fitness as well, and he's moved away from his original stuff, which I think was aimed at people like him. And I do think when instructors stick with what they understand as an experience, they're living and breathing it, I think it's more congruent, definitely. So I see a lot of instructors, because it's a very competitive market. There are lots and lots of all types of fitness. When I started, it was literally just exercise to music in church halls, So there wasn't that sort of range, and there wasn't all the private clubs, and there wasn't, yoga studios left, right, and centre, Pilates studios. There's so much range that the same number of people, I don't believe any more people are participating in exercise than ever were. I think they're just spread across many more disciplines and many more offerings. And so because there's a lot more instructors, I think sessions are smaller. It's harder for instructors to actually cover costs, let alone make a living. And so I think that's why instructors are moving away from what is congruent with them. It's I've heard Lincoln say this many times, shiny new toy syndrome. Oh gosh, there's a new thing, for it was about core training for a long time. Everyone talking about core, then they were talking about functionality, then they were talking about fascia, and then now they're talking about menopause. I think it's great. Yeah, buzzing. It is all the time about trying to find the latest gimmick in the music, exercise to music world. Obviously, Zumba. Everyone wants to replicate the Zumba success, that business model.
But when you've been in the forefront of it, like I've gone, I was perimenopausal, menopause, come out the other side. And when you've gone all through it and you've navigated your way around it, whichever way suits you.
Yeah.
You feel almost a bit cheated that other people, because you're then obviously that they are the sort of clients that I'm attracting.
Yeah.
And you're trying to educate them and you do your training. So I do my menopause coaching, but you almost feel a bit cheated because you think, flipping hell, Jo, like you've just picked up a set of dumbbells, and you're chucking it. No different to the leaning to the 15-minute stuff that he did anyway. And I do think that some people did raise a few sort of valid points that was like, you know, or actually he's only addressing like an exercise sort of thing. He's not addressing all the other, I don't want to say shit that comes with menopause, but I kind of do mean that. You know.
Well, you know, a lot of people do have a horrible menopause, don't they? There's no, you know, there's nothing I think more irritating than somebody who sailed through menopause, or indeed sailed through pregnancy, or any of these life-changing events, saying, "Well, I was absolutely fine. I don't know what you're talking about," and that undermines all the other people who won't raise their head above the parapet and say, "Actually, I felt bloody awful. I felt suicidal. I don't like my body. I don't like my husband anymore. I don't like my kids," you know. And so I think we need to listen to everybody. I think there will be a small minority of people who follow Jo, and why they're following him, because they know who he is, because he has a massive platform. Will it work for them? Who knows? However, there are many other people who won't follow him because they take one look at what they don't relate to him. Either the way he speaks, the way he looks, the fact that he's a male, you know, they won't work with him, you know. And so I believe that we can only lead from the front, you know. So lead by example, be the best version of us as being a coach as we can. But I do understand, I'm the same. I've invested fortunes in my education, my training, fortunes in time as well, and effort and heart and passion. But what are we going to do about it? Moaning about it will literally make zero difference, because he's making a fortune. Why is he bothered about us whinging and moaning? I just think it's a dreadful waste of energy, and it's embittering. So
oh yeah, definitely. It just started to sort of alarm me how many other people were kind of just jumping on that bandwagon.
oh yeah,
You
I
know,
know.
like, and they had the solution. And I think there was one thing though that I tell you that did shock me a little bit, even though obviously I've done all my training, was the amount of women. There was a percentage that I read, and I can't remember the percentage, but it was flipping high, about the amount of women that were prescribed antidepressants
I know.
rather
Yeah.
than HRT.
Yeah.
That did actually shock me quite a lot.
Yeah.
Although I can see why.
Yeah, because you do get
100%.
you
I
can get
see
really
why.
depressed. But that's because, you know, we're not prescribing medics. That's because the doctors and the GPs had such minimal information and education about menopause, but they're the people who have got their hands on the drawer that opens the thing that gives that person a quick fix in 10 minutes. If the GP isn't up to speed on why women of this age are feeling the way they are, or actually they'll recognize menopause, they just wouldn't know what to do about it. So they're going to deal with the immediate issue, and the immediate issue is a suicidal woman in front of them who's not able to function. So here, I'll take some of this. So we're back to treating symptoms, not causes. And I think the difference is that I have a client in front of me for a minimum of an hour, so you probably the same, and a GP has 10 minutes, and you know, their knowledge is like really broad, whereas we ventured specifically down you know, specialist knowledge, but we're not prescribing medics. And for some women, you know, they genuinely do need antidepressants to stop them from, well, just to help them function or harming themselves. But I agree wholeheartedly that the problem was they needed someone to sit down and talk to them about the rest of it.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking though, isn't it?
I'm shocked about many things at the moment. I really am. Yeah, and you really do have to pick your battles, right? Otherwise you spend your whole time with your eyes like that, you know. And yeah, it's disappointing. So the fact you talked about Davina before, about, I mean, she's jumped on the bandwagon as well, and I'm not doubting that she legitimately wants to help people. Initially she wanted to help herself, and then she got I can't remember the name. I'm the same as you. I've got a menopausal brain, right? So I'm not going to remember names. I'm not going to. I don't
Is
even
it?
bother trying, quite frankly, because I'd rather remember information. So yeah, so she hooked up with a woman who's running a business, a menopause business. She is a doctor, but she's making a fortune out of being a specialist menopause doctor. Have you got some dogs jumping around? Are you all right?
Yeah, they're all right. They're just having a nose out the
Yeah,
window.
check it. You're like, yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
yeah, so she's menocashed as well, and why wouldn't you? I guess why wouldn't you? I have chosen to integrate menopause work because with all my clients have got older with me. I mean, I've been teaching for such a long time, and most of them have been with me for the majority of that time. So we've been doing all the life stages together. So we
Yeah.
sort of all hit menopause at a very similar sort of time. So as I was getting better informed, because there was more information out there, because of the people like Davina who are driving the attention, which means businesses get involved because they want to make some money out of it. The HRT companies and people who make feminine products and bras and anti-sweat material, they're all thinking, oh, this is a business opportunity for us. So that sort of drove the conversation forward, and I am grateful for that. But what I don't want women to feel to be medicalized by it. It's part of our life. It's part of our life's journey. Thank God women are talking about it, and hopefully talking to their men about it, because I know that people never used to talk about it, because in the same way, people never used to talk about periods or anything, down there, as it were.
Yeah.
I'm glad people are talking about these things, normalizing it and saying you are still a dynamic, amazing woman with so much to offer. You're free from the concerns of having to child rear, and removing the negative consequences or the negative ideas about what menopause means.
I completely agree, because I think, regardless of whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. It's a part and process of how of going through midlife. And it's nice to see women. I think there's now almost like it's hope. Like they don't they know that now they don't have to feel maybe old and chucked out, and they can still change their bodies. They can still have all these other achievements. And the ladies that I think I've worked with that are like, oh my god, I feel amazing. And you're like, well, yeah, you can. It's not the end of the line. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's not like, oh well, that's it, you're over, you're done.
Yeah, just getting in the queue, ready to die. No, I think,
Yeah.
but women, we are blessed. Women never made it to menopause in previous histories. Some of them never made it past child rearing. So we're negotiating a new era for women, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think of the movie Mamma Mia, and the two friendship groups. There was the young group, and then there's the Julie Walters and Meryl Streep group. And I knew which group I wanted to hang out with in terms of dynamic, fun, naughty, interesting. So having these fantastic women, I absolutely love Dolly Parton.
Oh, me too.
What an incredible lady. And I love seeing these incredibly dynamic women still kicking butt, more so if ever. And you can imagine they've got an accumulation of years of knowledge and experience. And I'd love to see, I mean, there is a limit then. And I'm thinking about what's going on in America, where you've got two men who should be retired fighting over becoming the. I do think there comes a point when you're no longer competent, to be fair. But
I think when you can't get a sentence out, I think that's your time to go.
right, exactly. And like, so for us to be able to say, look, I can still get a sentence out. I can still, run a corporation. I am still very bright and I have loads to offer because I have all this life experience, and HRT has helped us with some of the physiological changes that impact our cognition and impact our energy and impact our joint health and bone health. So I didn't take HRT until I broke my finger doing something really innocuous, and so I spoke to the doctor, and she said, well, why, if you're 4 years past menopause, why do you want HRT now? And I said, because things are beginning to drop off, and I don't want things to drop off, and I was hurting, my joints were hurting and everything. So and searching around with words to finish a sentence. Maybe that's what Biden needs. He needs a little testosterone.
Little dose of HRT.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I think it's great that we've got this conversation. And okay, so maybe people being irritated by Jo Wicks is another opportunity to have an open conversation like we are now. And but I do. There is a big part of me that empathizes with that. For goodness sake, I've been working at this coalface for so long, and I've invested so much energy and effort, and they come whizzing in and they whip the carpet out from underneath me. And and there they are, living, winning awards and living, a very exotic life. But it's we're talking about what we can see from the outside, not what's going on behind the scenes. You think about the fame and fortune and what it looks like from the outside, and maybe, behind the scenes, it ain't so great.
So I think to round this up, I think it's, menopausal women, it is not over. It's more just beginning, really, isn't it? Especially, as I think you said earlier on in the conversation, maybe your children have left, maybe it can be almost like a little bit of I know it may not feel like it straight away, but it's almost like another exciting path where, no shits are given. You've paid your dues, and you can start exploring other areas.
Absolutely. Go. I mean, I had a lady, she's the next door neighbour of mine. I've lived here for 30 years, but she's never come over to see me for about health. But she came over to see me, and she's 72. She's not exercised. Her diet needed some attention and what have you. So literally, and her world had got really small. Girls, this is the risk. Your world gets too small. And then you get to the point where you don't have the confidence to drive your own car, take yourself here, there, and everywhere. That's got to stop, right? And we've got to keep our world open, our eyes open, and it often goes hand in hand with physical weakness. Physical and mental weakness often go hand in hand. And she said to me, I just want me back. Just want me back. I hear that a lot. I just want me back. Literally, it was such an easy turnaround. Just have a little tweak of the diet, set some very simple home drills. Every week we'd have a good old chat and an airing of what's going on. And the turnaround has been huge. Huge. And she's 72, so she's well past her menopause.
Yeah.
So it's never too late.
I do hear that a lot. I don't feel like myself.
Yes. And they're right. They don't feel like themselves. And it's about finding themselves, but also their new selves, which is exactly what you're saying. And if I, at 58, can do 2 professional dance jobs where the next oldest dancer was 24, they were aged 18 to 24. I kept looking around, where are the other old dancers? 30 dancers aged 18 to 24, and me. Now, that was a challenge. I'm not going to lie. I've got to say that was a challenge, but I did it. It's never too late. It's never too late. So I was scared shitless. I got to tell you, you'll probably have to blank that out. I was really scared. But I'm so proud of myself. I did it. I took myself so far out of my comfort zone, and it's never too late. There's always something that we can be excited and inspired by. And I love dancing with these young people. They're amazing.
as trivial as little as it sounds, doing these are out of my comfort zone.
Oh, I get
So
that. Yeah.
it's been a really, I've made myself
Yeah.
do it. I've made myself do it over and over and over, and I will continue. So
Well, you're good
you're
at it,
right.
love. You're good at it.
Well, we need to wrap it up
I
anyway,
know. I
but
know other people got a
it,
lie.
it's been so much fun.
It has been great talking to you. Take care.
And you, my darling.